This is Note-Taking Guide 11.1 for Math 2. We're going to start talking about some simple probabilities today. So we're going to start with sample space, subsets, and then move on to outcomes. So what I want to do is I want to talk about what a sample space is. A sample space is every possible thing that could happen. So if we're going to talk about everything that could happen, what is the sample space of rolling a dice? Well, I could roll a number 1. I could roll a number 2. I could roll a number 3, a 4, a 5, or a 6. Those are the things that could happen on a dice. So that would be called my sample space. Number 2 says, what is the sample space of rolling 2 dice? Well, if I were rolling 2 dice, I would at a minimum have rolled a 1 and a 1, which would add to a 2. So I know I can add to 2, I could add to 3, I could add to 4, I could add to 5, I could add to 6, 7, 8, all the way up to the number 12, because 6 and 6 would make a 12. So my sample space would be the set of those numbers between 2 and 12. What is the sample space of flipping a coin? Well, my only possible outcomes for that would be a head and or a tail. What is the sample space for this spinner? Well, the spinner, it didn't copy very well, but you can see that we have blue. You can see that we have red and yellow. So blue, red, yellow, and then green. That would be the sample space of this spinner. So a subset is a set that's in the sample space. So if we have a set that is negative numbers and positive numbers that are multiples of 4 here, then we could pick numbers out of that group to be in our sample space or in our subset of that sample space. And then our outcome would be the actual probability of something happening. So what's the probability of rolling a 6 on a dice? Well, there's only one 6 on the dice, and there's 6 possible things that we could have rolled, because we could have rolled a 1, a 2, a 3, a 4, a 5, or a 6. So our sample space was 6. So one chance of getting a 6 out of 6 possible outcomes. Number 2 says, what is the probability of rolling an even number on a dice? Well, how many of these numbers are even? Or when we're looking at them, we have 2, 4, and 6. So 3 chances out of 6 total outcomes. And then if we wanted to reduce that, that would reduce to 1/2. Number 3 says, what is the probability of rolling a 7 on a dice? Well, there's not a 7 on a dice. So our answer would have to be 0. Or we could write the empty set, which really just stands for no solution. So part of probability is knowing the outcome. So if we're rolling an outcome for 2 dice here, we would want to see what happens. Well, if I had the chance of rolling a 1 and a 1 here, I'd have the chance of rolling a 1 and a 2, a 1 and a 3, a 1 and a 4, a 1 on the first dice, a 5 on the second dice, a 1 on the first dice, and a 6 on the second dice. So we could fill out this sample space of what would happen if we rolled 2 dice. And really we could just roll it out like that. The way that this chart is going to work, and maybe I'll just keep writing really fast as I'm talking, is that if I took the 2 and I added them together, it would give me the sum of what happens when I roll the 2 dice. So we're going to use this chart quite a bit on doing some probabilities today and in the future. So for instance, if I wanted to look at all of the possible ways that I could roll 2 dice and get number 3 for my answer, well, they add to 3 only down this diagonal right here. So I know that I'd have 2 that would add to the number 3. So I'm going to use that to help me find some probabilities. As soon as I get this filled out. So it says, what's the sample space of this? Well, there's actually 36 different outcomes that could happen. But again, we talked about how the smallest number they could be would be adding to 2. The biggest number they could be would be adding to 6, or 6 plus 6, which would be adding to 12. If I wanted to know how many of them added to 7, I could go down this diagonal just like so to find those probabilities. So now that that's all filled out, let's use it to answer some questions. What is the sample space? Well, the sample space is that chart itself. There's 36 different sample spaces or outcomes that are possible. How many outcomes are there in the sample space? Again, there's 36. The sample space would be all of those outcomes up above. It says, is 5, 6, and 7 a subset of the sample space? The answer would be yes. I can get 5 by rolling a 2 and a 3, or a 1 and a 4. I can get 6 and I can get 7 by rolling 2 different dice. Is 2, 3, 5 a sample space? Again, the answer is yes, because all of those are possible outcomes when I roll 2 dice. What is the probability of rolling the sum of 6? Well, I'm going to go back to my chart over here, and I am going to look at the possibilities of me rolling a 6 combined together. So that would be down this diagonal right here. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different times that could happen. So my probability would be 5 out of a total of 36 outcomes. What is the probability of rolling a sum of 9? Again, I got to go back and I've got to look to see where my sum of 9 would be, and it's down this diagonal. There's 4 different probabilities or possibilities of that happening. So 4 out of 36, which will reduce to 1 over 9. What's the probability of rolling the sum? That's an odd number. Well, if we went and looked, this would add to 2, which is not odd. This would be 3, so I have 2 of them right there. These would be 4, they don't work. This would be 5, though, and there's 4 numbers there, so I know I have some there. This would be 6, and then I have 7, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 more choices right there. And then again, even, this is odd, so 1, 2, 3, 4. And then this would be even, and then odd one more time for 2. So if I add those together, I'd have 2 plus 4, which is 6, plus 6, which is 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. So a total of 18 ways to roll out of 36, and that would really reduce to be 1/2. Next probability we're going to do is finding probability using the spinner. So looking at the spinner, what's the probability of spinning an odd number? Well, first we have to know how many outcomes there are. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 different choices for an outcome. What's the probability of it being an odd number? Well, here's an odd. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. They're all odd. So 8 over 8 would be my probability, and I could reduce that probability from 8 over 8 to just be 1. What's the probability of spinning an even number? Well, there's no even numbers on there, so that would be 0. There's absolutely no chance of that happening. And then what's the probability of spinning a 5? Where there's 1 5 out of 8 possibilities, so my answer is 1/8. Thanks for watching this note-taking guide. Hope you have some good luck on your homework. Thank you.